Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 23rd episode of the Masters with Harshit podcast. Today, we wanted to take a break from what we've been doing, helping students, figure out which university they want to go to, understanding that we are towards the end of April and a lot of admits have already been rolled out and students are confused as to what to do next. Along with Akshit, a fellow classmate of mine from Columbia. Hi, Akshit. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi Harshit.
So today the two of us wanted to go through what the next steps or the process after you get an admit are, because we can completely understand the situation that current students, incoming students might be in, because we were in your shoes last year. So the goal of this podcast or this episode rather is to help students figure out the next steps. And so let's start off the episode. So I think first thing to everyone is congratulations. You have put in a lot of hard work. We know you've written your GRE, your TOEFL, your SOP, your LOR. You've shortlisted universities. You've spent like a lot of money to on like figuring out what you want to do and where you want to go. And all your admits are like a reflection of all the hard work you've been doing. So congratulations. So moving on, before we start off this episode, a quick disclaimer that Akshit and I wanted to give is everything that we're going to discuss in this particular episode is what we have learned over the last year, and these learnings and these things we're going to speak about is what was the situation last year. Things might change this year, so just use this as a general guideline. But please do your own research before making any before taking any particular step.
Also, just to add, these are our personal experiences that we will be sharing, so feel free to speak to other people and have their perspectives as well.
Absolutely, that's very important. So everything that we're going to talk about here is what Akshat and I have faced, like through our own experiences. But again, talk to other people because everyone's got their own experiences with all of these. And nothing, and what we're going to talk about is like a set route. It's all things that we have tried and tested. So if you try and test, you might find out something different. So please, like, feel free to comment that out or let us know what you've learned or what people have told you as well. So this is a content that we wanted to cover over this episode. So starting off with college groups, I-20, DS-160, and so on and so forth. So we will go into all of this one by one, and we will discuss what it entails and like what you can do best to be in the best situation before you head to the US. So college groups. So this is like one of the first things that I was really. This is how I got into the whole Columbia WhatsApp group, and I just wanted to spend some time to understand and to share with all of you things that you really have to do before even thinking about your visa appointment and stuff like that. So as soon as you get your admit, you would receive links from your university for like Zoom webinars where you have admitted students discussions, forums, or like bonding events and things like that. So I received my admit somewhere around mid-March, and I received the first webinar link around I think first week of April, second week of April, where like all students, a lot of admits had been rolled out, so they wanted all students to come together and figure out, meet each other and things like that. So I did not know that a WhatsApp group already existed. So I, created a WhatsApp group because I wanted to meet fellow people who come into Colombia. I did not know who was admitted and who was not. So I just put up a WhatsApp group, a link to WhatsApp created on the chat, and there were 40, 50 people who joined in. And later, someone texted me that there's a broader group with like 100, 120 people in that. So all of us like moved from this group to that group. So that was like the first place where all of us, like people from India who headed to Colombia, first met. So that was my experience. Akshit, what was that like for you?
I think I was already on the group that you were talking about. So
Okay,
during the Welcome Day webinar, I interacted with a lot of students through the group chat.
right.
There, I got to know Abhik and some other people, and I messaged them on LinkedIn. And turns out that they had already created a bigger group. So I was added to that group, and I think I was like the 35th person to be added. And by the time we flew to Colombia, there were already like 300 plus people on that group. So
Correct.
yeah, that was my
Absolutely. So
experience.
absolutely, so I think 300 is probably almost 60, 70%, if not all, like more than that percent of Indians who were flying that particular year. So that was like everyone had people were discussing everything from like what to do next or where to live and all those things. So all the stuff we'll be discussing over the course of this episode is what was being discussed on those particular college groups. So if you do not know that there is such a college group, first reach out to your friends, ask them if they know that there's such college groups. If there is not such a thing, create one, post it on your admitted students, webinars, chat groups, email to your admissions team asking them if there is something that already exists. If not, if you can create that, so that would be like the first and foremost thing you should do after getting your admit. Now,
Oftentimes, I'd like to add one thing. Oftentimes, universities themselves create LinkedIn groups where admitted students can be one with each other and they can speak to each other. So it's better to speak to the university if there already exists such a group, or go ahead and create one.
absolutely, absolutely. I remember there were some Slack groups also created, but even for Columbia, but I don't think anything was as popular as the WhatsApp one. So for
Yep.
context, even right now, the group is completely active. People keep posting stuff and like important stuff. So I think yeah, it's really helpful to be part of these college groups, college WhatsApp, Slack, whatever messaging platform groups. Next, I-20. So as soon as you receive your admit and you pay your deposit or whatever the university needs, uh, the first document the university issues is the I-20, which is basically saying that your name, you so and so have been admitted to this program, this university from this year to this year, and it is usually signed by a member of the International Scholars Office. That's what it is at Columbia. So I'm assuming something similar at different universities as well. So that's like the first document you should have, and this is the document you need before proceeding to any visa or any other process or any step that you have. Moving on after you receive your I-20. Okay, so we just wanted to point out that there was a bit of a typo in the slide that we're going to talk about next. And this is being edited so that we add this particular clipping in the middle. It is DS-160 and not DS-2016 or whatever. DS-160 is the name of the document that you will have to fill. So please keep that in mind when you're watching the rest of this episode. Thank you. And you want to go about with.
Just one point I'd like to add here, Harshit.
Sure.
At Columbia, to get the I-20 from the university, we had to pay a fees of around $100. But from what I know, a lot of universities do not require that fee. So be careful and have your finances set before you proceed to request the university for an I-20. Because
Got
if
it.
you're asked to pay and your credit card limit does not allow it, you
Right.
end up in a very stressful situation. So be careful there.
Absolutely, I remember. Yes, I remember someone was asking about how do we make the international transactions to their credit card because they did not have overseas spend or something like that on their card enabled. For sure, for sure. Also, another thing, good point that you brought up, Akshit. So the I-20 has a certain amount mentioned on it, which is your expected or your annual tuition plus living expense that is mentioned on it. And this is a number that you will have to show to the consulate officials during your visa interview that you have that this much at least so that you can stay in the university for a year and like stay in the city without any issues. So usually this is not how much you would spend in a year but rather and a little over the estimate so that it gives you enough cushion that in worst case scenario you're not put off in any untoward situation kind of a thing.
One thing I'd like to add here, like you said, Harshit, the number put on your I-20 is inflated. If it's, let's say, 100K, then your expenses would actually turn out to be around 80K, for example.
Right, correct.
But at the consulate, they say you're supposed to have like a 1.5 times amount as proof that you have that much money. But it's just a ballpark number, nothing written in stone, nothing written on the website. So, yeah.
For sure. So I think for me, if I'm not wrong, Akshit, I think 109,000 or 110,000 or somewhere around 100,000 was what was mentioned in my 20. And I had about 110 or about 105, 110-ish to show. And like I didn't have an issue. So people usually, people are very careful when it comes to the US visa interview process because it's very strict, people say. So always have something higher than the number shown. Anything below that is a red sign. So, please don't do
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
So the next thing is you have two documents, your DS-2016 and your SEVIS I-901. So if this is like the screenshot you see is from the internet of a fake I-20, but it basically says that you're applying for an F1 visa, and this is your SEVIS ID. Now this SEVIS ID is what you will be paying the SEVIS amount of $350 via. So you can do this anytime before your visa interview process. But at the time of visa interview, you have to show this proof that you have paid the service fee. So the last year it was about $350. I'm not sure if it's the same or it's increased. And that service ID can be found out at your on your I-20. And if I'm not wrong, for us to open an I-20, it was a PDF. The PDF was password protected, and that password was a service ID as well. So this is a very important number. Please keep it very, very carefully. The next document is a DS 2016. And the DS 2016 is basically a document you will find on the US consulate or the US embassy website. And this is what you will have to fill before your visa interview. So from the time you start filling the document is activated for 30 days in the sense that you can modify the document anytime within 30 days before submitting it. And even before submitting the document itself, you can still book your visa appointment. The only catch is that your visa appointment is linked to this particular uh, DS 2016 document. So, in case you submit the document and you need to modify the document, I think there is a very tricky thing that you'll have to manage. So, just be careful that once you're submitting a DS 2016, it is like the final version and you're not going to make any changes. So, that is why it is recommended that you do all of this after you receive all your admits and you know which university you're heading for, because only then can you pay your service ID and fill the DS 2016 properly. If you're waiting for any admit then and you want to proceed, do not do that. Wait till you receive your admit and you're confirming as to where you're going. In addition, the DS 2016 is a very comprehensive document asking a lot of questions. It takes about 1 to 1.5 hours to fill approximately. And it asks all kinds of details. Where did you do your schooling? Did you apply for the US visa before? And all those kind of questions. And like, what financial documents do you have? What are the proofs you'll be submitting? Are you taking a loan? How much money? Who's funding you? What is their relationship to you? And all those different questions. So be prepared to answer those even before you have the DS 2016 document. So if you're taking a student loan or anything of that sort, it is recommended that you submit your I-20. That is what the loan officials in India, the banking officials need to give you your to give you the loan. So submit those documents, get the letter saying that you have been approved for the loan, and use that as a proof for your DS 2016 and during your visa interview process. So I remember one thing again. So when I was doing this, the document was very complex for me. And I remember Gradvine last year. So a shout out to Gradvine and Suraj Perry from Gradvine. So they conducted a free webinar and they'd given out a free PDF, which I will also be attaching. I will be sharing through this through the description of this particular episode as how to fill it. So they had like a 10-page document there where they properly guide like this is what you should be filling in this field. So if you're lost filling the document, please check the PDF out and yeah, that is. And there are also a lot of online forums where you can also understand more about these documents. So always look out for these things. These you're not the first person to be filling these documents, right? So this has been the document has probably been the same for a couple of years. So there are forums online, there are people online. Again, use the WhatsApp groups that we first spoke about because everyone has questions and there is no better place than like these to figure it out. The next thing is visa appointment. So this is, I think, the trickiest part of the whole process. And the reason this is tricky is because um, there is no set date as to when the visa slots are opening or when they will be available and things like that. And the US Embassy understands that. So this is a screenshot from last year. So when I was applying, when Akshit and I were applying, so this was April 27th, and like as of this recording, April 22nd. So about like a week around this ballpark, this area was when the US Embassy posted that they know that so even the US embassy is aware, right, that F1 student visa, the season is on. There will be a lot of applicants, so they will open specific student visa slots. So that's what this particular tweet that they did last year says that they will open the first batch of appointments for the upcoming student visa session in mid-May. So that's exactly what they did. They did not specify a date, but it's somewhere between I think 12th, 13th May to like 16th, 17th May. So that's when they typically release slots. That's when they release slots. So that's when you can book the appointment for June. And they again release some more slots in mid-June for July. I think that's how it worked last year. It could again be very different this year. So please, check out, follow the embassy, and like be in touch with people. Another thing I think Akshat and I want to talk about were like Telegram groups. So understanding the importance of like how important it is to get the appointment on time. There are a lot of Telegram groups where people are like constantly checking and posting stuff. So you could probably join those groups and um, you can also get to know stuff from there as well. So, I mean, Akshay, do you want to add something else?
Yes, I wanted to say that there are Chrome extensions available that say, we'll inform you or notify you by email when visa slots are available, but they require you to enter your username and password that you would be using for your account. So it's a group effort. That is, if Harshit opens his account 3 times a day, he cannot open any more times. But if he wants to be informed of visa slots, then he will get to know that through me, because in the back end, the database links my information with Harshit's information to inform people. So if you're not comfortable sharing your visa username and password, if you think it's shady, if you think this isn't the right place, just don't do it. You'll get to know if there are visa openings through other people. Just keep asking on the group that we spoke about earlier. Just keep asking the group if other people have been able to book. If they have, then just log in and do it. But don't keep checking many times a day. Your account will be frozen. My account was frozen, um, and I think has had a similar experience. We can speak about that
For
sometime.
sure. Yeah, so I think for me, I got lucky. So I did not. I was very busy with like a lot of other things happening at the same time. So I was not able to join these Telegram groups or the Chrome extension. So shout out to Ratandeep Singh here. So he had posted like sometime in mid-May on the WhatsApp on the group that I was talking about, saying that slots have opened. I immediately opened up a laptop, booked a visa slot, and I went ahead and posted it on the CMU, like the MESM group as well. And like people were like so happy. They're like, "Thank you so much, we got our slot." Because I think the slots were available for 1 or 2 hours. Within that, all the slots were like over. And another thing, like Akshat was mentioning, was the website has a rate limiting thing enabled. So if you log in with your the same credentials 2 or 3 times in a day, it blocks you for the next 48 hours. So and another thing about the website is it's not the best. So it does not scale with users. So it takes a lot of time to load and stuff like that. And if you click reload and refresh or whatever, it kind of signs you out and signs you in again, which counts as another visit to the website. So please be careful and yeah, like be in touch with people. Everything works as a community. So yeah,
Here I'd like to add, I think if you log in more than thrice, your account gets frozen for 70 to, up to 72 hours is what they say on the screen. But mine was frozen, unfortunately, on the day when the visa slots were out. But for 48 hours, mine was frozen, and in less than 72 hours, it was open. Fortunately, there were some slots still
right,
available, and not to worry. I know it's a very panicky situation. You're trying to book your visa slots immediately, but even after that incident, for 1 week after that, there were slots available in Chennai and Hyderabad and some other places. So it's okay. Be calm. And pro tip, if you're not able to proceed further, do not hit the back button. Instead, hit refresh to stay on the same
interesting.
page. Because if you hit back and try and log in again, it counts as a new one. So you get rate limited and then you get blocked for 72 hours. So
Perfect.
be
I think
careful.
this is a tip I did not know because I never used. So thank you for sharing that, Akshat. So another thing is the visa appointment consists of two slots, two different things. The first is the biometric, and the other one's the interview. So people typically do that over 2 days. That's what was the general guideline. That's what I personally did as well. So I booked my. You should always do your biometric first and then your interview. So I booked mine in Chennai. I think in India totally you have you've got Chennai, you've got Hyderabad, you've got Mumbai, you've got Delhi, and you've got Kolkata. If I'm not wrong, these are the five. Uh, as of last year, these were the five. I'm not sure if they've changed it or they've expanded it this year, but these are
Just to add, last year there was an announcement that there will be another new
the
one in Bangalore.
not yet.
I don't think
Yeah, it
that has
has to
opened
open.
up yet, but in a year or so
Correct,
that might
correct.
be the
Makes
case,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, soon that's what they've promised as well. So yeah, that's like something you should be aware of and like take whatever is close to you and like keep 2 to 3 days for just this. It's not a 1 day thing. So yeah. Next coming.
Also, just a pro tip here. When you're trying to book your biometric first and then your interview, be sure that preferably both are in the same consulate because you don't want to have
Oh,
uh, Chennai on the first day and Kolkata immediately on the next day. You won't have that time and it'll create a very stressful situation. So be
correct.
careful.
I think another thing, Akshay, it reminded me of is like usually what happens is even if all the slots are filled, there will be people canceling or there'll be people moving around or they might additionally randomly open up slots. So even if you do not get it at the first go, do not worry. The consulate is aware, and all of us are a huge source of funding to the US as well because we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they make sure that we get the visa slots as well. So there will be slots. Do not panic. Just keep checking, and like you're bound to get something. So this is what we were told last year. if you're going on an F1 visa, do not worry. The consulate is aware, and everyone is almost everyone's bound to get an interview at least, if not a visa.
One more thing I'd like to add here is you'll find a lot of these companies coming to and saying, hey, you know what, we have some slots that we have access to, and these slots are available in black. I honestly don't know how that works, but it's very shady, and I would not recommend anyone to go in that direction. Do it yourself. It's easy, it's simple. Be calm, be careful. It's possible. Going through the other route may be risky, it may be illegal. In certain rare cases, I've heard people being deported because there were some issues that arose after they reached the airport. This has not happened at Columbia, but at other universities. So be careful. Don't take the other route. Just putting it
Absolutely.
out
I
there.
think, so I think one thing I've heard is the way they work is they randomly book slots from some random profile. And when someone comes with a demand, they delete the appointment and immediately they book it through this. So it's a very shady thing to do, I think. So please not, if anyone's telling you like, pay us money and we'll do it for you, don't do that. It's a very simple process. It's made so that every common person can do it. So, just stick to that and you and I, if Akshay and I could do it and so could a lot of us, I think it's not rocket science for sure. So you should be able to do that. The next biggest thing is the visa interview and documents to carry. So the documents to carry is a huge list. So, and all of these are originals. Your original passport, your original 12th standard mark sheet, your original 10th standard mark sheet, your original degree transcript, your original degree certificate, your original source of funding. So, for example, it was a bank statement for me that was attested by the bank manager and all those different documents. So I'm going to share a list of a PDF containing 2 or 3 pages. So this is a very exhaustive list, but always be on the safer side. The visa interview, everyone's experience is very, very different. So depending on which university you're going to, and depending on your luck as to who the person who's interviewing you also is, it's a huge thing. So my visa interview was quite straightforward. They just asked me where I was heading and what I plan to do after that, and like who's funding me and things like that. So it was straightforward. So if you're going to a reputed university, the consulate officials understand that and they will not question you too much or grill you. However, if you have kind of tricky documents, so you're not able to establish a proper financial backing for yourself, be ready for more questions. And yeah, that's something I had. Akshay, do you have something?
A few things I'd like to add here. So there is something called Dropbox. That is, if you already have been to the US, you already have that stamped on your passport. You don't have to interview. You can have your visa delivered directly to your home. That's the first thing. The second thing is I benefited greatly from the group that we spoke about at the very beginning. So people who had interviewed before me shared their interview experiences on the group, and to know the kind of question that I will be asked in advance was very helpful. You can always Google that. The commonly asked questions in visa interview processes are always available online. For me, the interview process went like this. So she read Columbia University on my resume. She was excited. She's like, congratulations. I thought the visa process would end there because she seemed so happy. But instead, she asked me a very random question. What was my specialization going to be here at Columbia? Now, it was random for the reason that the Data Science Institute here does not offer tracks or specializations in the data science program. So I randomly said NLP, and I didn't think that she would cross question me. But she asked me what NLP stands for, and I said natural language processing. She immediately started Googling what NLP
Crazy.
stands for, and that quite surprised me because I didn't know that they would just immediately
Right.
start Googling and
Right.
cross question me that way. So she asked me other questions like my source of funding. I said my dad's a businessman and that's how I'm being funded. Fortunately, she didn't ask for any documents like income proof or tax documents, but sometimes
Right.
I've heard that they do. So it's better to have those documents with you. And my process ended right there, that
Right.
being the last question. That was my interview experience, and I hope that other people can
Absolutely.
benefit
I
from
think
it.
one thing that they actually try to do, Akshat, like as you mentioned as well, right? So regardless of what university you're coming for, if they always want to confirm that you are the legitimate candidate and this is a university, a good university you're going to. So they'll always try to cross question and understand whether you're confident in your answers. So even I've heard this through some other interviews as well, is the source of funding. If you kind of fumble or you're not very sure as to where the money is coming from, they look at it as a threat and like, as to like, how would you even stay in the country, how would you fund yourself and things like that. So always be confident and be sure that you're carrying the documents that will prove all of this, your education, your degree, and make sure that you know about your university, please. I remember someone was asked something like something very random. What was, I think, the mascot of Colombia? I think that's the first time I got to know what it was. So it's not too difficult or too deep or something. It's just for them to know, to make sure that they know where you're heading and you're not just there randomly. Another thing is, so if your visa gets approved, they will tell you that your visa got approved, and they keep your passport, which basically means they'll be stamping it, they'll be adding your visa page, and they'll deliver it to you. All of this is included in the package when you're paying the money itself, which I think $160 for filling DS 160 and your visa stuff. And if you're rejected, which hopefully not a lot of people who are watching this will be, you'll be returned the passport and you can book another slot and come back. So I think I had one anecdote I wanted to share. I was talking to Akshit about this. Was so I booked my biometric and visa slot in Chennai. So I was traveling alone. I was staying in a hotel. So the first day I went for biometric, I was carrying my phone in my pocket. There was a locker. I kept my phone in my locker. I did the biometric. I got out, and that was all good. But then the next day, when I had the what do you call when I had the visa interview, I was carrying my phone in my pocket, and I did not know that the Chennai consulate does not have a locker system. But I was not allowed to carry the phone inside, so I had to keep my phone somewhere outside. So but there were a couple of auto drivers who were standing there, and they asked me saying that, do you want to keep your phone? So I said yes. So they told we have a locker system. They took me around the compound, and then he just told me this: if you don't get your visa, no problem, thousand rupees. If you get your visa, in the name of goodness and the name of the good Lord, whatever, 2,000 rupees. I was like, there is no way I'm paying 2,000 rupees after spending all this money to keep my phone here. I still had 1.5 hours to spare. So always please make sure you're there before time, half an hour to 45 minutes, even 1 hour. They will not create a problem saying that you're there before. I got my biometric, I think my biometric was like at 12 and I was done at 12. So I like walked in at 11:30 and the whole process got over in half an hour. But there are times when there is traffic and there was a lot of people. So be there half an hour to 1 hour before your slot. So I went back to the hotel. I kept my phone. I carried hard cash with me. I came, did my interview, took an auto back to the hotel. So, just be sure if you're traveling with someone, that's perfect. You can give your phone to them. But if you're not, make sure you have your own arrangements done.
One more important thing I'd like to add here is during the visa interview, during the whole process, I'd say, uh, make sure that you don't say things that may give them the belief that you want to stay in the US. Say that you have strong ties to your home country and that you'd like to come back after you finish your studies. Although you may want to work during the OPT period, but tell them that you would like to come back and continue working in India or whichever country you come from. Because if you hint at relatives being in the US or your interests in settling down in the US in the long term, they might not like that. So don't portray yourself as someone who wants to settle
Absolutely. I
in the
think another
US.
thing that a fair answer is yeah, I will use the OPT extension to work for 3 years and then get back or whatever. So that's also a fair answer. So keep that in mind. I think all of these again will come back in your group chats. As and when people interview, they will be posting all of this stuff as well. So yeah, just check those things out as well. And now that your visa is done, now you're thinking of what to do next. You need a place to stay, and that's where your apartment search comes in. And the first question we even get before apartment search is, so how do I find my flatmates or my roommates, right? And again, going back to the first thing we spoke about, group chat, right? So I was part of both CMU's and Columbia's WhatsApp groups, and the reason I was part of both of them was I had admits to like the CMU MISM program, and I was not at that point. This was like early April before I booked my visa slot and all this stuff. I was not sure where I was heading, so I was part of the CMU group as well, and I did not leave it at that point. So there was a CMU Pune meetup. So they so now you have the concept of communities in WhatsApp, right? So you create like groups under that. So there was like a CMU Fall 23 group community. Under that, you had CMU Pune, CMU Bangalore, CMU Hyderabad, and all the cities and stuff like that. So I attended a CMU Pune meetup and I like met people there. And similarly for Colombia, I think we had three meetups unofficial that the group organized before we actually had like a Colombia organized meetup. So that's where I found my flatmates, and I think that's like a great avenue for all of you guys who are watching this particular episode to find out roommates as well. In addition to that, I think a couple of people had volunteered to host online sessions where people could like get to know each other, people in different cities if they wanted to find roommates across cities, or you did not find someone in very comfortable with in your meetup and you wanted to find someone online, that was also an option. So explore that as well. Like that's like the first step to like looking for uh, flatmates. That's how I found my flatmates. Akshit, how about you? How did you find your flatmates?
Like you said, Harshit, the first step to finding an apartment is finding flatmates, finding people you want to stay with, because if you're compatible with a certain group of people, it's better to take the apartment with them. If you feel comfortable sharing your resources with them, they're the
Absolutely.
kind of people you want to stay with. So how do you go about searching for an apartment? Well, if you stay in New York or surrounding areas, Street Easy is an app by Zillow that can be quite useful. I think Zillow in general is useful for finding apartments throughout the US. What a lot of people like to do if they're unable to find a good apartment at a cheap price. If sometimes some people are hesitant to book an apartment while in India when they want to go to the US because they feel, if they haven't seen the apartment, they don't want to pay all that money in advance, like 1 month's rent, security deposit, and all of that. So what they usually do is they book an Airbnb, stay for a month or two, and then later uh, meanwhile, they keep looking at houses and then later they move to an apartment, sign a lease, and so on. Somehow this year I did not see many people doing that, but the people I spoke to previously from the previous cohorts, they did that. So that's a common option as well, especially in cities where apps like
Right.
Street Easy may
Maybe
not
correct.
be able
Maybe
to give
college
them good
towns or maybe
results.
smaller cities where this is not a very feasible option, or you don't have too many options on that. So in addition to Street Easy, you've got websites like apartments.com, RentOp. There are a lot of Facebook groups or Facebook groups and communities as well you could be part of. So I know I find it very funny that Facebook is very good at these things. One is sublets, finding used furniture, finding things like that. So Facebook Marketplace is a big deal in the US. So coming from India, this was surprising because in India we have OLX, we have all those different websites where people buy like secondhand stuff. But here Facebook Marketplace is the thing. So when I got here, like I wanted to furnish my apartment, a lot of things like my table, my chair, I got all of that secondhand from like Facebook Marketplace. So that's like a great thing. And I think before all of this, right? So once you decide on your flatmates and you decide to like get a house, the first question is where do you get the house, right? So I remember at the place around Columbia, not all of it is very is marked as very safe. There are certain dangerous neighborhoods. So what our seniors did was they took a Google map, and they like drew a boundary and told us that whatever is in this region is like safe. So if you're going to any university, just make sure you talk to your seniors on what good places to get accommodation are. Like, how far is the university? How do you commute to the university? Is it safe to walk at night? Because as graduate students, you have a lot of classes that might be in the night. So make sure you have that option as well. It's not that it's just safe in the morning and things like that. So that's very important. And second is, I think Akshit, one thing that helped me a lot was seniors. So once we were like, we communicated with the brokers via email. But once we were like kind of sure we were going to go ahead with an apartment, we asked some of our seniors to like if they were free to go and check out the apartment. And fortunately, we had like each of us. So I'm in a three-bedroom apartment, so we have like three flatmates in total. So all of us had one or two seniors who went and checked out one or two apartments. So I remember one apartment, we loved it. We were about to close on it, but then the senior who went there, he came back and told us that there is no gas that in the apartment right now, and they do not know when the gas will be installed because there's some renovation going on and it's been down for the last 4 months. So they're giving us an electric stove and things like that, and we were not very happy with that because we are used to using the traditional gas stove and like things like that. All our utensils are made for that kind of a setting. So always ask your seniors. They are like really helpful for us. They really were. So I'm sure they will be for you guys too. So that
I think two things I'd like to add here.
right.
You mentioned utensils, right? So some of the things that you should know when you're coming to the US is, for example, there are no fans here, right? So you should be open to buying coolers in the winter or maybe even heaters during the summer if your apartment does not have that for the winters. So if you're looking for an apartment, ensure that it has heating. Not all apartments come with cooling facilities, so that's fine. You can buy your own cooler. Here, a lot of stoves are electric and not gas. So if you're getting utensils from India, make sure that you can use them here because they'll become
Correct. I think
useless
so.
if
Right.
you
I think the
cannot
precursor, like
use
to what
them
you're
on
mentioning,
on
Akshit,
the
is like
stove.
know what the apartment has. for us, like it was a gas thing. So so our gas stuff worked. So I think, yeah, if Akshit, yours is like electric and like you bring your gas stuff, it's not gonna work. So when you're booking your apartment, make sure you know what is there and like carry utensils accordingly. Fantastic.
Yep, definitely,
Right. So
absolutely.
like you can see, right, there is differences right here. So that's his is electric and mine is gas. So if we had interchanged stuff or we did like whatever was common, it would not have worked. So everything we're speaking about, make sure you tailor it to your own specific need and your own specific situation. So
Harshit, one more
Mhm.
thing regarding Facebook Marketplace. While it is a great place to find apartments and sublets, it can be a little shady. I
Wow.
was almost scammed twice. So
Hmm.
I'd like to share that experience because I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people can benefit from it. So I was looking at houses or apartments to stay in with Abhik, and we found this lady who had posted these beautiful pictures at a ridiculously low price,
Mhm.
very close to Columbia University. Now, what is too good to be
Is
true? What
probably
looks to be
yeah.
too good to be true is probably too good to be true, right? So we spoke to her, and then she's like, I'll have my lawyer send in the documents and then I'll send them over to you. So she did that in like the next 6 hours and she sent it to us. And turns out that there was a typo. Instead of 1,000 as the monthly rent, it stated
Oh,
10,000. And I told her, look, I cannot
right,
sign that until that is changed, right? And this was the
right,
first
right.
time I was signing a lease. So I didn't know what to expect. So I told her, look, I'm not going to sign that. She's like, no, no, just sign it and we
Oh,
can like, you can just deposit $100 right now and I'll have that changed later on. I said, no, look, I'm not going to
for
change.
sure.
I'm not going to sign that until you change it. She's like, okay, maybe it'll take a day or two to change it. And then she sent the document in the next 2 hours. Honestly, it felt like she changed it herself. She did not have a lawyer
Right.
change it, right? And before Abhik and I were actually going to pay the $100 deposit or whatever she was asking for. But before we did that, we decided to just look up her profile and other postings by her and seemed like she posted another apartment in
Oh
California with the exact
shit.
same pictures. Right? Now
For
there
sure.
cannot
For
exist the same
sure.
apartment in both the cities, right? So we had another friend message her for that particular apartment in California. Okay. So that friend expressed interest for that apartment in California, and she literally said that yes, this is what the apartment looked like, and all the facilities stated in this block in this advertisement. You get all of them. The pictures they're as good as they can be, and all of that. That proved that she was lying. So we approached her. We told, look, we know that there's something wrong, and then she blocked us. So this happened twice.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
be
Correct.
very careful when you're looking at Facebook housing.
Absolutely.
It's not
That's a
the
great
safest place
cautionary
to
thing,
be.
right? So even if you're not just apartments, if you're like buying stuff also, make sure they're an actual person and not someone who's looking to scam you. So thank you for that cautionary tale, Akshay, that's really helpful. So do not blindly trust anyone. Uh, do not think that US is a different country, so everything's going to be nice and cozy compared to India. It's not that. It's as bad, if not worse as well. So there are all kinds of people here. So always please be cautious with what you're doing.
Another thing I'd like to add here, Harshit, in picking your apartment, for example, Columbia here provides a shuttle facility within a certain area of coverage. So if you're looking for an apartment, you may want to consider that because it makes your commute to the university easier. Another thing is that apartments closer to the university are generally priced higher. So if you go through secure apps like Street Easy, for example, as opposed to Facebook housing, if you go through Street Easy, brokers can ask you for up to
Correct. It's not
15%
15%
of
of
the
the month,
year's rent
it's
as broker
15% of
fee.
the year, which
So
is
be
more
very
than a
careful,
month's rent.
be up for
So
it.
that is up to how much they can go. But I've also heard it can
Yeah,
be
it
as
is,
low as
it
like
is.
zero or sometimes even half a month's rent. So all of this is possible. It is up to you to bargain with the broker and like, how
True.
you figure that out. Thanks for pointing that out, Akshay. Also, I think one more important thing I want to talk about, Akshay, is like the very weird configurations of apartments that exist in the US. So in India, we're very accustomed to three bedroom, three bathroom, three bedroom, two bathroom houses. But in the US, apparently that is not very common. The apartment I currently am in is a three bedroom, one bathroom apartment, and that's like the norm. So even with like, there are very, very few three bedroom, two bathroom, and like a very few, I mean, four bedroom, bathroom is more common, but there are apartments with four bedroom and one bathroom as well. So keep that in mind. And the next thing is, around Colombia, all the buildings are like 100, 110 years old. Like I think the building I'm in was constructed 1908 or 1909. So it's like 110, 116 years old. They do not have elevators. So when they say walk up, it means you have to walk up. And I live on the sixth floor of the building. So every day I go to class, I go down 5 floors, I come up 5 floors. So the first few days, and the first time, the worst is the first time when you land in the US, you have these two 23-kilo suitcases. You got to carry them up 5 floors. And trust me, it's something you get used to. It's not impossible. But do consider if you feel like that's a lot of exercise for you, that you're not very comfortable with that, pick something that's at a lower floor. So keep that in mind as well.
Not just suitcases, Harshit, even if you order a bed, for example, in
All
India,
right.
when the Amazon delivery arrives, they ring your doorbell and they wait for you, and then you can have them carry it up. In the US, they just throw it on the bottom floor, and it's up to you to carry it to the top. They don't always deliver it at your doorstep. So, if you're looking for an apartment and it
Right.
need not be furnished, right? It need not have a bed
Carrying it
and
up.
these other facilities. So if you order things in the US, if you order a bed, if you order a
Absolutely.
mattress, a table, a chair,
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
going to
yeah,
have to
we had
carry
that
all of that
circus, but
up.
now the
So be very
opposite of
careful.
that circus is true again. How do we get out of this place? How do we take the stuff out of here? So at least when you buy it, the mattress over here is like the new system that's come up in India as well, where it's all the rolled thing. You just like open it up and it inflates itself or whatever. Yeah, so that was easy to carry, but now that it's inflated and it's full size, I don't know how to take it down the stairs. I don't think it's very easy. So yeah, please be careful and like think about that too. There's something else that was striking my mind. I'm forgetting it right now, but once it comes back, I'll probably talk about it. And the next thing that's very interesting and new for me was these two words, guarantors and renters insurance. So basically, what happens in the US is that if you're taking an apartment on rent, there are situations in which people fail to pay the rent. So what happens is you have someone who guarantees that you will pay the rent. So that is what a guarantor is. And the way it works is they'll be filling a document on behalf of you saying that they will be the guarantor. So in case you fail to pay the rent, they will be bound to pay the rent. And there's also a downside that if you fail to pay the rent, it will be like a credit hit on them. So whatever credit score they've built, that will actually get hit. So there are two ways to go about with getting a guarantor, and majority of the houses in New York need a guarantor. One is you get someone you personally know to guarantee you. So for our apartment, like the three of us, we knew people here personally. So each of us got our own guarantor to do that. But I think there are also other websites that will act as guarantors for you, but they will charge you like almost a month's rent or something like that. Actually, I think you'd done something like that, right? What was that like for you?
So we approached the guarant. So firstly, we approached our landlord and
Absolutely.
asked him which
Correct.
guarantors he was comfortable with because your landlord may not be open to all guarantors. So he said that he's open to third-party guarantors such as the guarantors as well
Hmm.
as personal guarantors. If we have anybody in the US who's willing to guarantee us, that also works. So we went forward with the guarantors, and I'm paying I think one around $2,000 a year towards guaranteeing that I will be paying my rent in time, which is a lot of money to be honest. So, uh, Another thing I'd like to say is if you have a personal guarantor, somebody in the US who can not just anybody in the US, but I think they require a citizen, and these rules can change from one lease to another. So if you have a US citizen who can guarantee that you will pay your rent in time, and God forbid you fail to do that, then it hits their credit score. And people know this. So if you approach somebody in the US and say, hey, can you guarantee me? Be open to the fact
Absolutely.
that they may refuse because it's a big risk for them. You can approach them, but be open to the idea that you may have to get a third party guarantor, such as the guarantors. Now, I'm not endorsing any of these brands. I'm just using them as examples so
Absolutely.
that you
Akshat, when
can,
you said
it makes your
$2,000,
search
right? Was
easier.
that like for your whole apartment, or was that just for your part, or what was that?
That's a good point. Actually, it was for my whole apartment for all the people staying here. So the amount that the guarantor, so the amount that you have to pay to the guarantor in order to guarantee is based on the number of people staying in the apartment, the location of your apartment, if you are a working professional or a student, because if you are a working professional, there's less risk, right? You will be paying your rent in time. If you're a student, things can go wrong. So it's based on a number of factors. 2000 was
Got it.
the
Makes sense.
ballpark
Makes sense.
number for
So I think,
everybody in
yeah,
the
that makes
apartment
sense,
for
right?
12
And it makes
months.
sense that people might refuse to be your guarantors because it'll take a hit on their credit score, which is the same as not being able to repay your loan or not being able to pay your credit card bill on time. So, next time they go out to buy something, that their insurance or their loan premium will be higher. The insurance will be higher. The next thing is renters insurance, which was a new concept to me. So a lot of the buildings here are quite old. So what they do is, and they're made of things like wood and like all those different very old material and things which are very specific to the US. So the landlord requires you to take something called a renters insurance, which makes sure that if something happens to the apartment, there's someone who will be held liable. So we picked this company called Lemonade, and there are multiple different companies you can pick from. And we were asked to pay about $300 in total for the whole apartment, three of us, to ensure about $900,000 or so in safety for the house. So that came up to about $108, $109 per person for us. That's how much we paid for like a year-long renter's insurance. So in case there's a fire or something happens, the insurance will be covering that. So I think make sure that, like Akshay mentioned, the landlord you are going to is comfortable with that particular insurance company, and only then go ahead. And I think Akshay, another thing you're mentioning about the US citizen, I think it depends on the landlord, like you mentioned again. For us, I think they were accepting non-US citizens as well. And is also a multiplier. So not anyone can be a guarantor. You should be making a certain kind of income. I think it's something like about 12 times or like 13 times the um, annual rent of the apartment. I think 10 or 12 times, some number like that, is how much the guarantor should be making. Only then can they be a guarantor. You can't get anyone to be a guarantor as well. So that's important too. Moving.
Right. And one thing I'd like to add in terms of the guarantor and renters insurance, uh, if let's say, God forbid, you're not able to pay your rent in time yourself, then the guarantor pays it on your behalf. But that doesn't mean that you don't end up paying that rent or nothing happens to you. You will have to end up paying that rent because the guarantor paid on your behalf. But it'll also affect you and your history. I'm not sure history in what way, but the next time you go looking for an apartment and you approach the same company to guarantee you, they might refuse you or you might have some complications there. So be open to the idea that you have to pay your rent in time, and not,
Absolutely.
take the other out
Right.
of
I think
cheating the
advice,
guarantors
please be
because they
on
have
time.
agreed to pay on your
If
behalf. So
your
be very
billing
careful
cycle,
there.
if you have to pay by 30th of the month, pay by the first or second. There's no point of holding on to money. Might as well like, be just clear it off as soon as possible. You don't want to risk anything. So yeah. The next point I think Akshat, a lot of us have had or will be having is how much money to carry to the US. So obviously rupees don't work here. That's a no-brainer. So how many dollars do we carry? Do we carry cash? Do we carry card? Do we carry a forex card? Do we carry a credit card? What do we do? So I think the rule of thumb is you carry a basic amount of hard cash, not a lot. I think you're not even allowed to carry more than $2,000 or $3,000 legally, if I'm not wrong. There's some number. Again, don't quote me on this, but just look it up. So you're recommended to carry as little as you can. I think I was carrying about $500 or $1,000, and that was actually a lot. So don't carry that much. Instead, what you can do is you have forex cards. I think a lot of banks in India are providing HDFC, and a lot of them they have almost zero conversion rate. They only charge you when you're filling in money into that and stuff like that. And those cards are like on Mastercard on Visa network, so they work everywhere. So do that. There's also a company called Solve. I think that's very popular, that has come up. A lot of students in Columbia were also using that last time. So, if you want, you can explore that as well. They claim to help you build your credit score in the US as well. So, if that's actually true, that would be quite helpful too for a lot of folks who want to stay here for a bit. So, yeah. And another thing is, once you carry that cash, please keep it safe in the US. Don't carry $200, $300 in your pocket at any point in time. The US is a little dangerous, especially New York is very dangerous. So do not carry a lot of hard cash on you at any point in time. Carry like $10, $15 or maybe $20 max. Don't carry more than that. Everywhere people accept, okay, it's not everywhere. Yeah, people here still, there are some people who prefer cash transactions, but still carry as little as you can or as much as you need for that day. Because there are instances even here at Columbia, students who have gone outside in New York who've been mugged and things like that. Not to scare anyone, but always be on the safer side. Do not carry a lot of hard cash with you. Akshay, do you have anything?
Right. I completely agree. I think I got a few, I think $1,000 or something, and just lying around somewhere in the apartment. It's a
Correct.
waste of money. You will have, when you open a bank account here, you might have to go and deposit it there, but why make
Right.
that extra effort? Rather, you can get a Forex card or Zolve, as you mentioned, which is a credit card that you can avail as a student if you're coming here. I went the Forex card route. So I got a Forex card and I've been using that for a while until I got my
Absolutely.
bank
I
account,
think
that
another thing,
is.
even for me, right? So when
So
I
I
was
think that
carrying,
is
I
the
think
better way to go
if I
about
remember
it.
correctly, I was carrying $1,000. But as soon as I got here, I heard of that story. I got scared. I went to the bank, deposited $800 immediately as soon as my bank account was open. I was like, I don't want hard cash near me. So yeah, please be careful and don't carry. Even if you're bringing cash to the US, do not carry that around with you. Do not keep it in your wallet. Keep as little as possible. For sure.
I think definitely keep around 20 or $30 in your pocket for like whatever
Absolutely.
reason,
True.
if something goes wrong, maybe your phone battery is dead, or maybe in a very dire situation you need it. But don't carry anything more than that, because chances are, if you, let's say, gave a $50 note to somebody and your actual bill was 44, they
Right.
might keep the rest as change. That happens quite frequently as tip,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't
right?
agree more.
So it's just a waste of money,
Uh,
man. Just don't
the
do
next
it.
thing, I think, guys, if, I'm just going to give you a fair warning. This is a long episode. And I think it's very useful that you watch the entire thing. And even if you're not going to watch it in one sitting, like watch it through parts, because each of this is very, very important and things that you will learn step by step. But if you watch this video, you get a crash course in the entire thing at once. So the next very common term you'll hear in the US is SSN, or the Social Security Number. So the Social Security Number is a number that is like a PAN card, I would say, in the US. That's the most logical equivalent I can think of. But the only difference is you cannot disclose your SSN. Like you're not supposed to disclose your SSN publicly. Like it's a secret number that you're supposed to keep with yourself and only use under very like strict situations, or like under very secure things. Like if you're you can give it to your bank, you can give it to your credit card, you can give it when you're using a loan and like things like that. So you're not supposed to like publicly share this number everywhere. So that's like the first thing of what a social security number is. And you will not get a social security number as soon as you get here. I think Akshit, you want if you want, you can like talk about how security number and stuff like that.
You need a social security number to be able to earn in the US, even if you're doing a part-time on-campus job. So, given the current market situation, working on campus, if that's not the best option for you, if you want to prioritize, let's say, applying for internships or jobs, let's say that's your priority, I would say still somehow get a part-time job as soon as you land on campus so that you can get an SSN. Because what happened for a lot of my friends is we all landed here and we all started looking for internships, had other priorities. Nobody cared to do a part-time job. But when they got an internship, turns out that only 30 days, they only have 30 days until their internship starts, and the whole SSN process can take 30 days. So by the time their internship starts, the SSN has not even been delivered yet, and SSN is required as part of the internship process. So it's better to come here, get a part-time job, even if that doesn't pay you well, to avail an SSN and have that process fast-tracked. Because it creates a lot of stress if you don't have an SSN and your internship guys are waiting for you to send it to them. Um, they might be aware that you don't have an SSN and they might, give you a hack like, entering 000 or 555, something like that. But
Absolutely.
that's
I think
only
that kind of
temporary. It
links us
fast
to the
tracks the
next
whole thing if
topic,
you
and I
have a
think we can
part-time
talk
job and
about
an
it in
SSN in
broader depth.
advance.
So the next topic that we were going to focus on was on-campus jobs. So on-campus jobs could be a wide range of things, right? It could be being a receptionist, being a librarian, or like being at the gym, or as like whatever, or like doing an RA ship or a TA ship, whatever. All of these are on-campus jobs. And the reason I think Akshat and I are emphasizing on getting an on-campus job, if not in your first semester, in your second semester at least, before you begin your internship, that's it's very important, is because you can only apply for an SSN when you have an offer letter. This does not have to be an internship offer letter. It can be an on-campus job offer letter as well. And the reason the SSN, in addition to the internship, like to other things, it's very important is the SSN is also a kind of document that identifies you. So I think if you're applying for a credit card, right? So your credit history is tracked through the SSN. So, and the way it works over here is so you can get a credit card even before you have an SSN, but to actually start getting like, a credit history, you need your SSN. So look for on-campus jobs even before you get to the US. So typically where people look for on-campus jobs is in the gyms, in the libraries, in like, proctoring online exams and like things, or like serving in the in the food court or like whatever your campus has. Like explore those options, and there are abundant of them if you start early. I know students. I did not personally do anything in my first semester, but I know a lot of students who did that. So do that. Email professors, look for TA-ship, RA-ship opportunities, and like things like that. Even before you come to the US, right? This is something you have to do much much earlier than that. Actually, do you want to add something maybe or?
No, no, definitely you should try and look for on-campus jobs much earlier to coming here
Right.
because a
Correct.
lot of people are applying, and not just you,
Absolutely.
people who are actually in their
For
first
sure.
or second semester, even them.
Absolutely. So I
So you're
remember,
competing with those guys as
we
well.
have
So
certain
apply in
on-campus jobs in our
advance,
campus as well, like at
improve
the
your
gym. So
chances.
you could be like someone who's scanning tickets for events and stuff like that. So I know friends who are like, so you have a limit of 20 hours per week as how much you can work. And this particular job pays below like a TA-ship wage. But what they were telling me was when they figure out that they want to spend money over the weekend, they just do 3, 4 hours of work that week and they spend that money. So, if you do not want a commitment of how many hours you'll be spending per week, this is a great opportunity as well. Like to offset your expenses, you want to go party or you want to go eat outside or whatever. Like do these on-campus jobs and like get that money.
In Colombia, doing an on-campus job can fetch you enough money to, let's say, offset your rent for a couple of months, a semester, maybe 3 months, or at least offset your living expenses like food or traveling expenses, for example. In other
Right.
universities, if you're doing a
Absolutely.
TA-ship, sometimes your semester fees is waived off. So that was something new to me. If you're doing
Correct.
a TA-ship, then you can,
Absolutely.
waive your
Fantastic.
tuition
Actually,
fee in
that's very
some
interesting. I did not
universities,
know
and
until I
that
got
can
here.
bring your
I
overall
mean, that wouldn't
expenses
have changed
down.
anything, but yeah, that
So
was
that's a
like
good
I was
option
like,
as
oh
well.
damn, people are getting the tuition fee, whole semester tuition fee waived off. That's heavy. Okay, so moving on, state ID and driving license. So your identification as an Indian in the US is typically a passport. Very, very, very few places will accept your Aadhaar card because they're like, what is that, right? And fair, they're like typical Americans or like the general Americans. No one would know what different countries' identification would be because then they'd have to know what other countries also have, right? So, what students or people typically use is the state ID, which is given by the state government or the state organization. And the way it works is so again, why this is required is if you're going to say a party or a pub, or even if you're going to say a boat cruise that a lot of the universities organize, there you are not. You need a proof that you're 21 years of age, and if you do not have your state ID or like a US origin driving license, you have to show your passport. So it's not ideal to carry your passport along with you when you're going partying or you're going roaming around the city or you're traveling the airport and stuff like that. So it is generally recommended to get your state ID as soon as or as early as you can as when you get here. And again, to get a state ID, however, there's a catch. You need to have a social security number or you need a letter that says you do not have a social security number. So that is why if you see all of this, we're tying back to as like get your social security number, apply for your state ID. Another thing that a lot of Indian folks have is driving license, right? I remember we had this discussion last year when we were in India as to do we get our IDP or the international driving permit when we get to the US to drive our cars around and stuff like that. And a lot of students did get their IDP, but turns out that you actually do not need that. If you're on an F1 visa, 1 year from the time of entry to the US, your Indian license is valid to drive in the US. So 1 year from the entry. So if you get out of the country and get back in on your F1 visa, again it gets extended by a year. So the only catch is make sure your license is in English, it's legible with your picture and like a QR code or something that validates that it's an original ID card. And one very foreign concept to me in the US was state ID and driving license being complementary, at least in the state of New York. So that basically means if you have a state ID, you cannot have a driving license and vice versa. So right now I've applied for state ID very late, but yeah, that was my situation. But you can get a state ID, and if you're applying for a driving license, like if you get a driving license in the US, you have to forego your state ID, and apparently this is because both of them are identification cards, and you should have only one or the other. So if you get a state ID, like always get a state ID as soon as you get here, and when you get a driving license, you can surrender your state ID and use your driving license. So driving license typically it's more expensive here to get. It's more complex and stuff like that. So people, the F1 students, at least when they're in college, um, they use the Indian license itself to rent cars and stuff over here. Renting cars is extremely cheap here compared to India. And it's more convenient and it's the preferred mode of communication when you're getting out of city. So if you on the weekends or on like Thanksgiving break or whatever you want to get out of the city, you would rent a car, and your Indian license is actually accepted in those places. So that was absolutely
Yep.
correct.
I think in New York at least the city is very connected through the subways, but in cities like in states like California, for example, you have to have a car to get from one place to the other, right? And having a
Absolutely.
driving license there can be a blessing. Having a
For
car,
sure,
being
for
able to
sure.
rent, being knowing how to drive can be a
Let's
blessing
just
there.
this we're going to keep this
So
short.
that's just
Things to
something
bring
I
from
wanted to
India. It's
add.
very subjective. You can get whatever you want. But one thing that I commonly heard at least was get a bidet, a portable, squeezable bidet, whatever it's called. So like most of you know the concept of like a bidet, a water connected bidet is not like whatever it's called, like the shower or whatever is jet spray or whatever it's called is not very common. Is not very common in the US. Probably non-existent in most of the places. So we
Jet
use a
spray.
portable bidet, fill it with water, and just squeeze it. That's what it does. So that is like one for sure thing. If you think you're very particular about that, get that. In addition to that, like Akshit and I, we were talking about utensils. You get a lot of utensils here, right? Your general kadai and like your dabbas and all of that. Please don't get that. You get that in the US. It'll probably be a little more expensive, but you can like get other things in that same volume and the same weight from India. But some things you don't get here that easily. I think pressure cooker is one thing that is not very common here. At least that's what we heard, and that's why we brought a pressure cooker from India. So I'd get them. In addition, winter clothes and all those things, you readily get them here. They might be a little cheaper in India, but not that much different. So, unless you have a lot of space, a lot of volume, don't carry that. Typically, most airlines, I think, allow you two 23-kilo suitcases. The dimensions vary from airline to airline. So when you're booking a ticket, please make sure you know um, what the dimensions are and what the weight restrictions. But typically, it's I think 23 kilos. So 23 into 2 or 46. That's how much the limit, at least when I was flying, was. But again, I can like, sorry.
I think a few things I'd like to add here, Harshit. So do not carry electronic appliances. Some people, they want to carry mixies and things like that, or even, for example, a trimmer if you like to trim your beard or hair or whatever. Avoid carrying these items because not only are they easily and cheaply available in the US, you might get into trouble for carrying them, especially things that have batteries in them. Another thing is if you're carrying things to the US, it might be the first time you're traveling abroad. Uh, Ensure that your airlines and the US laws allow you to carry those things. For example, your airlines might allow you to
Right.
carry loose rice from India, but they are not allowed into the US according to US laws. So be careful. You can get rice here easily. You can get most food items, even Indian food items
Absolutely. I
here
think
easily, even
that's a
though they
good
might be
segue to like
slightly
another
more
thing I want to
expensive.
talk about.
So avoid
So
carrying
for
things
those of
that
you who
might
do
get you
not
into
know, there
trouble.
is currently a non basmati rice export ban that's been on from India for a year or so now. So at least here, the only Indian rice we get is the basmati rice. So people try to, hack around that, saying that we'll carry Sona Masuri or Ponirana. So whatever rice they use in India, Surtikol, whatever, from India, do not do that. It's not worth it because it's actually legally you're not allowed to do that. So if you're caught, you'll fall into trouble. So avoid those things. Your airline will also give a list of things you're not allowed to carry. So please make sure you're there to that. And even the US, I think there are US airport websites that say what you're not allowed to carry. Please stick to that. Please not try to be smart. So that is very important. The next thing is bank account and SIM cards. So as soon as you arrive in the US, the first question is, okay, I need to book an Uber. I need to book something to go back home. Of course, you have Uber here because it's based out of here. You've got other apps also like Lyft and things like that. And the way it works is, I think typically what students do as soon as, even before they come to the US, is they get their own SIM cards, whatever they have, Airtel, Geo, whatever it is. They get roaming activated on it for a month. So I think that's the most typical and the best, probably the best thing to do. So you get like 20, 30 GB of data, whatever, for a month with probably limited calling, but you've got data so you can like use WhatsApp calling or whatever. So that's like one of the best thing to do. So do that. And in addition to that, I try to be a little smart. It worked out well, but probably would not recommend is so I knew which SIM card I wanted to get. So okay, coming to like SIM cards, right? Bigger topic. So you have multiple carriers in the US and you have different kinds of carriers. You have primary carriers and you have like some carriers which work on top of that. So you've got like the primary carriers like AT&T, Verizon and like things like that. These are like the primary carriers who own the entire bandwidth and things like that. And then you have things on top of that, like Mint and I think Google Fi or like whatever it's called. All of those work on top of that, which they have tie-ups with these primary carriers. That does not make too much of a difference. Not every cellular provider works well everywhere. So before you get something, please talk to seniors and people around there on what works best in the area you're going to stay or the state you're going to stay in. And next is you have discounted plans called family plans that exists. So do not go and get your own SIM card. Like, talk to friends, three, four of you, create a family plan. You can get like discounted rates. And in addition to that, you have like very, very affordable offers that come out from like things like Mint. So that's one thing I'm using. So I pay $15 a month, which is not too much. I get about, I think, 15 GB of data and like unlimited calling. And here I've got Wi-Fi at home and at university at all times. So 15 GB of data a month is like not uh, it's not an issue for me. Another thing is, yeah. So what I did was I knew I was getting the Mint SIM card. So when I was in the before I headed to the US itself, I downloaded the Mint app. I got a SIM card. So it was an eSIM. So I did not need a physical SIM card as such. I downloaded the eSIM configurations and stuff like that. And as soon as I landed in the US, it got activated. So I didn't necessarily need roaming, but not suggested. You can keep that as like a backup option or like a secondary option in case your roaming doesn't work. Roaming almost always works. So do not worry about that.
One thing I'd like to add here, Harshit, you spoke about SIM cards. I think SIM cards is a very important thing to cover when you're planning to move to the
Hmm.
US, because a lot of times when you want to open a bank account, they can ask you for your US phone number, right? And you don't have one until you have a US SIM. So getting a US SIM card is very important. And we
Absolutely.
spoke about Zolve cards earlier, right? That allow you to make US transactions. Sometimes they deliver a
Right.
US SIM card to you while you are in India, but you can only activate it when you land in the US, like you mentioned, right? Because of certain restrictions around that. If you're going to open a bank account and you're a student under 25, banks like Chase give you a student discount, and you get like two to $300 deposited in your account for free. If you're over 25, then most
I
banks
think
are much the
Akshit,
same, be it
Chase
Bank of
Chase
America,
is
Chase, or
24
any
years, I
other.
think, if I'm not wrong,
So yeah, if
because
you're a
I did not
student
get through it
and you're
last time.
young, make
So
use of
yeah,
those.
so I think the difference is you can use a student account only if you're less than 24 in Chase and 25 in
Oh.
Bank of America. So I know this because I fell into one category in each of those places. So what Chase does is it says if you're under 24, uh, you're a student account, and the first transaction, if you have a recurring income or whatever, you get $200 or something. So again, that's specific to the banks and whatever offers exist at that point in time. And Bank of America, however, classifies you as like a student or whatever if you're under 25. And they told me as soon as you turn 25, your bank account status will change and you'll need to maintain a minimum balance. So even my Chase account, because I was over 25 or 24 when I got my account, has a minimum balance. So please get those specifics as well. And one fun thing is you have referral system even for bank accounts in the US. So if one of you get here first, feel free to share with someone. Both of you make money. Um, yeah. And another thing I think, yeah. No, please, please.
A good point here, Harshit. Yeah, sure, go on. So, if you're
Correct.
getting a bank account, like you mentioned, minimum balance, right? The benefit of having a student account is you don't have to have a minimum balance. Because you're a student, you're allowed to, let go of that. But if you're let's say, if you're someone over
Yeah.
25 years of age and you don't fall under that category, you're supposed to have like 1,500 in your bank account each month. Now, the problem with that is if you're paying if you're paying rent every month, you're supposed to, transfer money from your Indian bank account to the US bank account, and then that's a $15
It's a big number
charge additional you're paying on each
for sure.
transaction. So that keeps building up, and over the end of the year, you've been charged a
Right.
lot more,
I think actually I
right?
just want to
So
point out to
just
one
keep that in
catch
mind.
in like the
Having a
Zolve
student
thing you spoke
account
about.
can be
I
very
remember
useful.
this issue happening to a couple of people. So the SIM card was valid only for 3 months or something, I think, and after that they could not continue it. They had to get a new number or something of that sort. So please catch as well. Like do your own research before getting it. But yeah, that's a great option, like a first thing to have. So I think the first two things you should be doing as soon as you land in the US is SIM card and bank account. Like of course, like get your furniture, get your Wi-Fi. Those are like very important things too. But like SIM card and bank account are very important because the bank account statement that you get is the proof of your residence. So if you're going to get an SSN or you're going anywhere else and they ask you for proof of that you reside in that particular in New York or wherever you're residing in, your bank account statement is the proof. Moving on, I think this is I think the last segment of this this particular episode, and a very very important part that we wanted to emphasize on, given the current job market and all those things, is internship prep. And so I think the first thing that all of you should know is internship prep starts much before you get to the US. You've gotten your admit. Congratulations! It's April, it's May, whatever it is. University starts in August. Companies start opening up internships even earlier. Google last year opened it somewhere around mid June to late June. Amazon opens it towards the end of July, and all these companies keep having rolling cycles and things like that. And these things are ongoing. So please do not wait until you get to the US to start your internship prep or start applying for internships. Uh, Start preparing, start applying as and when you get your admit. As soon as you get your admit, you get your university email as well. So, when you're submitting it, you can obviously say that this is my email, this is my .edu email, I stay in the US. And once you get your apartment, you also have a US address to provide. So, yeah, I mean, that's like the first more detail. Actually, do you want to add anything at this particular stage? For sure. Correct.
I completely
Absolutely.
agree. In
True.
fact, even if you don't have an apartment, that should not stop you from looking for internships. If you need to put an address, put your university's address. If you need to put a phone number, you can put the phone number of somebody you know in the US. It's okay even if you put your Indian number in the last case, if you don't have somebody in the US. The most important thing to do is to apply. Forget all else, you need to apply for internships early on because in this job market, it is very difficult to get an internship. And the only advice I can give somebody to secure an internship, a good one, is to apply early and is to apply to as many as possible. And just so you know, if you're watching this video right now, PwC, for example, is hiring for summer
Absolutely, Akshit. I think,
2025.
one
A
thing
lot of
that our
companies are hiring
seniors
for 2025
stress on
right
a
now.
lot, and I
So
did
I
not
encourage
value that
all
much,
of you to
but I did
apply.
value it a bit, which I appreciate a lot, is it's a numbers game, all right? You have to keep applying, and you just don't know which one will click. If you're lucky, your 30th, your 40th application you might get through. I applied for more than 600 positions personally, and I started applying in the month of July last year. So even before I got here, Amazon opened, I got a referral immediately, I applied. Google, I got a referral, I applied. I didn't get through any of them. And I got my internship just last month, towards the end of last month. And it's been rough, right? The market is very hard. And you cannot just expect to, start somewhere in July, somewhere in October, November, December, or maybe the second semester and say, I'm going to land an internship. If you're lucky, yes, it might work out, but it's a numbers game. The more you apply, the higher chances you have. So just keep applying. So out of the 600 jobs I applied to, I had referrals for about, say, 60 to 70 of them. And I had interviews with three companies only. And the last one is where I got my offer. So it's very hard. The market is tough. Um, if you're a software engineer or a machine learning person or whatever, lead code is your best friend, of course. Lead code geeks for geeks. Start preparing, start doing that. Brush up your resume. So Columbia has this fantastic program called PDL that they do for incoming students. So even before you come in the month of May, June, July, they'll get you to brush up your resume, work on your LinkedIn profile and things like that. So even if you're not at Columbia, look up how to get the best resume out. How do you build your LinkedIn profile and be active in all these on these portals. Look up companies' career websites, look up LinkedIn websites, and look up LinkedIn careers, LinkedIn jobs. Look up GitHub pages where they keep refreshing job openings and things like that. And one thing I want to mention is there's this particular Chrome extension called Simplify, and that's why I was able to apply to 600 jobs. So Simplify basically parses a website and fills in details for you automatically. So basic details like your name, your phone number, your email ID, your college, your background experience. Since all of them follow, there's three, four companies that make these job applications or job profiles. You've got Workday, you've got a couple of them, so they know those formats and they know how to fill those in. So use those things, that'll help you, like, increase the speed at which you're applying. And another thing that I've been hearing of late is the importance of cover letters. I mean, even Columbia was quite adamant in that, but I didn't pay much attention. But apparently recruiters are caring about it. So spend a little time on cover letters as well. Use GPT or whatever to craft it to that particular company, but make sure you're kind of having a cover letter. That would definitely add more to your profile. I think I don't want to take too much of time on internship prep. Like that's a separate topic in itself. So just make sure you're ready to apply for internships and like interview. Yeah, that's all I really want to say at this point. Absolutely. I think at
Yep,
the end of
that
the
was a
day,
lot of
right,
useful
you're coming to the
information, and I
US,
completely
whatever you
agree.
want to do
Applying
research
for
or whatever, your
internships
end
is
goal is
as
at least you
important
wanted
as
to
any
cover
of
the
the
month
other
you
things that
spent,
we spoke
or as
about.
your tuition fees at least. over the course of however long you'll stay here. And internship is the first step in that direction. So because you can either convert it or you can like use that to you can leverage that to get other offers. So make sure you spend a good amount of time on applying for internships, preparing for internships, and get referrals. Talk to people on LinkedIn, talk to your career site, talk to your career folks at university, talk to your peers. It's very, very important that you do all of this. And the market is tough, but it's not impossible. If you get well enough, you can crack a good internship. So yeah. I think that's all I had for this episode. It's a long episode, but I think very useful for anyone who is going to come this year. So do watch the whole thing. Like, feel free to rewatch it. If you have questions, do drop in the comments. I would appreciate it if people can answer that as well. And like, if there's anything else that we want to add, we can add that in the description, or we can even make a separate video on that. So yeah, I mean, I think that's all I had. Akshat, do you have anything else? Absolutely. I think this is a long episode again. I want to emphasize that it's a lot. There's a lot of information. It
No,
might not be
that's
very
pretty
easy to
much it.
process everything.
We've covered a
So
lot.
watch it once, watch it twice, share it with your friends. Another thing I want to tell a lot of people is please share stuff. There have been situations in which people have been, getting information but not sharing it with others, and that's very asymmetric because a lot of times what happens is they might know something you don't know, and like it might be vice versa too. So always share information. You're not going to lose anything by sharing knowledge, right? So there might be something that we've spoken about in this which could be incorrect too. So please feel free to correct us. We are not perfect. We have just experienced this last year. It's been a whole year, and trust me, time flies very fast here. And like we might have forgotten things or we might have interpreted things wrongly. So feel free to like drop that in the comments as well. We'd be more than happy to take care as well. Awesome. Thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a good one.